Sophie Cunningham's decision stunned many, not just because she left the WNBA offseason behind, but because of where she chose to go. Project B, a brand new league offering $2 million minimum salaries, isn't just another experimental startup. It's backed by heavyweights like Steve Young and Novak Djokovic. That level of investment, credibility, and commitment signals that something seismic is happening in women's basketball. Cunningham's move, followed swiftly by stars like Kelsey Mitchell and Jewel Lloyd, has people asking, if this league is real enough for them, what does it mean for everyone?
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Cunningham's leap is more than personal. It's a shot across the bow to the WNBA's current structure. By joining a platform that values female athletes through pay and visibility, she's forced a conversation the league can't ignore. Project B isn't poaching talent. It's setting a precedent that could push the WNBA to either evolve or risk losing more stars to a model that puts players first. This is a turning point for the economics and power dynamics of women's pro basketball. It's official. Women's basketball just got a serious upgrade. And no, it's not courtesy of the WNBA. Sophie Cunningham has signed with Project B, and suddenly every critic, skeptic, and Twitter hot take machine is scrambling. Because what looked like just another offseason is now the beginning of a new era. One where female athletes aren't just expected to be grateful for scraps. They're getting the bag, the spotlight, and the respect they've always deserved. And the best part? It's not just about Sophie. She might be the face of the announcement, but this move is cracking open the door for a whole wave of talent and money to flood into a league that isn't just talking about valuing women's sports. It's backing it up with million-dollar contracts and A-list investor clout. Let's not sugarcoat it. This changes everything. Cunningham's decision to join Project B is a direct challenge to the status quo. It sends a crystal-clear message to the WNBA and the broader sports world. Players are no longer settling for underpayment, underpromotion, or underinvestment. And with Project B guaranteeing minimum salaries of $2 million, yeah, that's not a typo. That's a full-on flex. Especially when the WNBA's max salary still hovers well below $250,000. Let that sit for a second. This isn't just a paycheck. It's leverage. It's a statement. It's years of being undervalued, packaged into a contract that finally reflects the skill and dedication these athletes bring night after night. And no, this isn't a side hustle or some exhibition tour disguised as a league. Project B is offering full 5-on-5 professional-level basketball. Real games, real competition, real investment. And the kicker? It's all happening during the WNBA's offseason. That's right. Players don't have to choose between loyalty to their main league and maximizing their earning potential. They can do both. It's strategic, it's smart, and it's player-first. For once, adding names like Kelsey Mitchell and Jewel Lloyd, that's not just momentum. It's a full-blown shift. Project B isn't dipping its toes in the water. It's cannonballing into the deep end with stars who could have easily played it safe but chose something bolder. Because finally, there's something worth choosing. Now, the support behind this league isn't just a few optimistic donors and vague promises. Project B is backed by heavy hitters like NFL legend Steve Young and tennis icon Novak Djokovic. Yeah, that Djokovic. We're talking international sports credibility, big money influence, and a roster of backers who don't throw cash at gimmicks. They invest in opportunity, and they see it in women's basketball. With figures like that pushing the league forward, it's not just about competing with the WNBA. It's about creating a model that raises the standard across the board. And here's the thing. This external funding isn't just symbolic. It's transformative. For years, players have been forced to look overseas for meaningful paychecks, risking injury, burnout, and time away from family just to make what their talent is worth. Now, that might finally be changing. With Project B, there's a domestic league offering real money and real visibility. No more second-tier treatment. No more second-rate deals. This is professional women's basketball, with the financial respect it should have had decades of timing, impeccable. With the WNBA still wrestling with its own salary cap limitations and financial structure, the arrival of Project B is the pressure point no one saw coming this soon. Cunningham's signing turns up the heat. Mitchell's addition throws gasoline on it. And every player watching from the sidelines right now is calculating what their worth might look like outside the traditional system. Because when other leagues prove they're willing to pay what the athletes are actually worth, what excuse does the WNBA have left? It's not a question of loyalty anymore. It's about value. And here's where things really get interesting. As more top-tier players consider deals like this, their bargaining power in WNBA negotiations skyrockets. No longer are they locked into a single, underpaid option. They have choices. Real ones. That means better contracts, stronger collective bargaining positions, and the ability to finally push back against decades of lowball deals masked as growth. The message to the WNBA is loud and clear. Pay up or lose talent. It also raises a massive cultural and global question. With someone like Djokovic involved, Project B isn't just speaking to American fans. It's drawing international attention. That's a big deal. Women's basketball has always had global talent, but now it has a chance at global reach. With the right infrastructure, this league could pull in fans from every corner of the sports world and investors with even deeper pockets. Think about it. Global expansion, off-season scheduling, seven-figure contracts, and a growing roster talent. That's not competition. That's disruption. And let's not forget, the league isn't trying to replace the WNBA. It's challenging it to be better. That's what real competition does. It forces innovation. It forces transparency. And most importantly, it forces accountability. Because when players have no choice, the system stays broken. But when they have options, the system has to evolve, or risk becoming irrelevant. This is what a shifting power dynamic looks like. And it's only just started. Players aren't just showing up and playing anymore. They're building brands, negotiating from positions of strength, and making decisions that benefit their careers and their bank accounts. And leagues like Project B are giving them the platform to do it, which means we're looking at the beginning of something much bigger than a single signing. Sophie Cunningham stepping into this role isn't just about one athlete making a savvy career move. It's about years of frustration finally turning into forward motion. It's about telling future stars they won't have to settle for exposure over paychecks. And it's about signaling to the industry that women's sports are no longer a side story. They are the story. For the fans who've been demanding better, for players who've been working for crumbs, and for the critics who said women's basketball doesn't draw numbers, this moment matters. Because investment is no longer hypothetical. It's happening. The dollars are real. The contracts are real. The power shift is real. The WNBA can't afford to ignore this. Not anymore. Because every headline about Project B is another reminder that the old ways of doing things just aren't cutting it. When outside investment proves what's possible, the excuses start to fall apart. And honestly, it's about time. So to the haters who insisted women's basketball would never pull real money, how's that crow tasting? The narrative has changed, and it's not just hype. It's happening. And the momentum isn't slowing down. With each new signing, with each investor announcement, with each fan who shows up for this new era, Project B keeps growing. And the rest of the industry is watching because they know they're either going to evolve or get left behind. Let's see who's smart enough to keep up. If you're here for the drama, the disruption, and the long overdue payday for these athletes, you know what to do. Like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and hit subscribe. Because if this is how women's basketball looks in the offseason, you're not going to want to miss what's the tremors from Sophie Cunningham's decision are already being felt across the league, the media, and let's be honest, those WNBA front offices that suddenly look a lot less confident. And if you think this is just a flashy moment that'll fizzle out once the season kicks back in, think again. This isn't a one-off payday. This is the birth of a business model that puts players first, not as a tagline, not as PR spin, but in actual dollars. And that's the one thing the WNBA's been dancing around for years. Real compensation. Not bonuses. Not brand partnerships. Not applause and tweets from executives. Cold, hard salary. Because here's the uncomfortable truth. Players have been told to wait. That their value would be recognized eventually. That growing the game had to come before financial respect. Well, Project B skipped that whole patronizing detour and went straight to the solution. You want players to stay? Pay them. 2. You want athletes to commit to the league year-round? Make it worth their while. The fact that we're only now seeing a serious alternative like this is honestly baffling. But the way it's already reshaping conversations, that's where the real power lies. Before this, any suggestion that women's leagues could command multimillion-dollar salaries was laughed off or dismissed with a patronizing, "the market doesn't support it." Now the market is speaking, loudly, and what it's saying is, if you build it right, they will come. Because Cunningham's not just a recognizable name. She's a competitor, a leader, someone with real presence on and off the court. For her to take the leap and sign with a new league, that's not just curiosity. That's calculated confidence. That's knowing your worth. And more importantly, knowing that other people finally know it too. Same goes for Kelsey Mitchell, Jewel Lloyd, and whoever's next. Because let's be honest, this roster is just getting started. Every name that joins makes Project B more legitimate. And every time someone jumps, it gets harder for the WNBA to sit comfortably on its current model. You can already feel the shift happening. Fans are paying attention. Players are watching closely. Agents? They're practically drooling. Because for the first time in a long time, there's actual choice in the women's pro basketball market. And that changes the game. Let's talk about the money again, because really, it's the elephant in every locker room. A minimum $2 million salary. Not appearance-based. Not bonus-triggered. Just there. Guaranteed. That's life-changing. That's career-redefining. That means you don't need to chase sponsorships or fly overseas for 7 months out of the year just to make ends meet. And the real kicker? These deals are coming without the players having to sacrifice their WNBA spots. Project B's schedule runs during the WNBA offseason, which is genius. That's what makes this so bulletproof. Players don't have to pick a side. They get to double up, 2 leagues, 2 salaries, twice the exposure, 0 risk. So now you're a WNBA GM or commissioner. Watch your athletes' cash checks you couldn't give them. How does that sit? Because whether they say it out loud or not, the pressure's building. The league can't pretend this is temporary. It can't lean on vague promises about next year anymore. Project B is delivering today. And let's be real. Cunningham's signing on makes it crystal clear that top-tier talent is open to this model. That matters. The league isn't filled with retirees or rookies. It's picking off real talent in their prime. That's terrifying for the establishment. Because for once, players are calling the shots. This is how industries evolve. Not slowly, but through moments like this that break everything open. And let's not sleep on the fact that this isn't just about the athletes. Project B is backed by legit legends. Steve Young and Novak Djokovic. That's not random celebrity buzz. That's international legitimacy. When global icons start investing in women's basketball, it's not just a movement, it's a market shift. These aren't sponsors. They're stakeholders. And they're in it for the long haul. Their involvement shows that women's basketball isn't some charity case or PR checkbox. It's a serious, scalable opportunity. And these backers see what so many legacy leagues refuse to, that women athletes have value beyond their highlight reels. It's already reshaping how fans engage, too. Interest in Project B isn't just about novelty. It's about momentum. People are hungry for something that respects the athletes and respects their time and energy. For too long, women's basketball has been operating under the shadow of, well, it's not the NBA. So, now, it doesn't have to be. Project B isn't trying to be the WNBA's little sister or the NBA's distant cousin. It's creating its own path. One that's faster, more flexible, and far more player-centric. That's what makes it a threat. Not because it wants to compete directly, but because it doesn't need to. And that's what puts the WNBA in a weird position. If it tries to fight Project B, it looks petty. If it ignores it, it looks out of touch. And if it doesn't adapt, it risks falling behind entirely. We're talking about an inflection point, a moment when the culture catches up to the conversation. 2. Because for all the progress the WNBA's made, and yes, credit where credit is due, this is the first time we've seen a league coming with the money, the star power, and the infrastructure to create real alternatives. Not charity games. Not marketing gimmicks. Just actual career-shifting options. And if the WNBA wants to stay competitive, it's going to have to evolve quickly. There's no more hiding behind market excuses. If outside investors can put together multi-million-dollar contracts for off-season games, then the WNBA has to explain why they can't do the same during the main season. Because what Project B is really offering isn't just more money, it's more respect. It's a chance to feel valued not just as entertainers or social media figures, but as professional athletes with skills that deserve to be rewarded on par with their male counterparts. And now that the players have a taste of that, there's no going back. It's not just Cunningham's deal that's shaking the table. It's what it represents. A new normal. A system that doesn't just wait around for the league to catch up, but creates its own lane, writes its own rules, and dares others to do better. The WNBA's future depends on how it reacts to this. Because if it embraces a challenge and starts meeting players where they are, with real pay, real incentives, and real agency, it could level up. But if it continues playing the long game while others are sprinting forward, players will leave, fans will follow, and the league's relevance could slip faster than anyone expects. That's not a threat. That's just a market. Project B is proving that the old limitations weren't structural. They were just a lack of imagination. And now that someone finally imagined something better, the whole landscape is shifting. So if you're still underestimating this league, ask yourself, how many more big names have to jump before you start taking it seriously? Because we're not talking potential anymore. We're talking reality. Cunningham's already there. Mitchell's already there. Lloyd is watching. Others are next. And every new name makes this less of a trend and more of a takeover. The moment Sophie Cunningham put pen to paper, she didn't just change her career. She shifted the balance of power. And now, everyone's watching to see who flinches next. Because here's the truth. This wasn't supposed to happen. For years, the unspoken rule was that players had no choice. You either played in the WNBA for a modest salary and hoped for endorsement crumbs, or you packed your bags and flew overseas for better pay and worse conditions. That was the system. And everyone just tolerated it. Until now. Project B cracked that illusion wide open. It exposed how much more is possible, how much better it could have always been, if someone just believed enough to invest. And not in slogans or campaigns, but in contracts, salaries, real structure. That's what has the basketball world shook. Because Project B didn't ask for permission. It didn't wait for a slow rollout or a 5-year plan. It came in hot, with money on the table and stars already signing. And when you see a competitor offering your best players millions while you're still capping max deals at under $250,000, yeah, you feel that. You feel it in every front office suddenly holding emergency meetings. You feel it in every PR rep scrambling to spin the story. You feel it in the silence from those who were so quick to defend the WNBA's growth strategy just a year ago. Because now there's a mirror being held up. And it's not pretty. What Project B proves loudly is that the money was always there. The interest was always there. The talent? Definitely there. What was missing was a willingness to prioritize women's basketball, to believe in it enough to back it, to pay for it, to treat it like a real product, not just a passion project. And look, no one's saying the WNBA hasn't made strides. It has. But better than before doesn't mean good enough now, especially when another league is putting up numbers that make WNBA contracts look like summer internships. The optics are brutal. One league is offering 7 figures and flexibility. The other is asking players to take charter flights only if the budget allows. One is backed by global sports legends with financial firepower. The other is still explaining why revenue sharing isn't realistic. So let's be clear, this isn't competition. This is an indictment. And it's not just about money. It's about control. For the first time, players have leverage. They're not just athletes anymore. They're business assets with options. They can negotiate from a position of strength instead of desperation. And that kind of power, that's what scares the system most. Because if enough players choose Project B, not instead of the WNBA, but alongside it, the balance shifts. Suddenly, the WNBA isn't the only game in town. It's the league that has to keep earning its athletes. And that's exactly what needs to happen. For too long, the conversation around women's basketball has been centered on patience. We'll get there eventually. We're building something. Trust the process. But patience doesn't pay the bills. And it certainly doesn't reward players who've given their entire careers to a league that still can't match their value. Project B is skipping the wait list. It's saying, we're here, we're serious, and we're not lowballing anyone. And yes, there will be skeptics. People who insist this model isn't sustainable. People who say it's a novelty. But every disruptive force in sports starts the same way. Doubted, dismissed, and underestimated. Until suddenly, they're not. Remember when people laughed at the idea of streaming sports? At women's soccer drawing stadiums? At athletes being paid for name, image, and likeness? Those laughs didn't age well. So as Project B keeps signing names, collecting press, and writing checks the WNBA won't. Not can't, won't. The pressure's going to get louder. And honestly, it should. Because every player who joins this league is doing more than chasing a check. They're rewriting the rules. They're rejecting the false choice between passion and profit. They're refusing to wait another decade for someone else to finally see their worth. So yeah, envy is hitting hard right now. For the players still grinding under outdated contracts. For the execs caught flat-footed. For the critics who never thought this day would come. But the ones who saw it coming, the ones who knew their value all along, they're not shocked. They're signing. And if the WNBA doesn't want to be left behind, it needs to move fast. Because Project B isn't slowing down. And the longer the league hesitates, the more players will walk straight through that open door to something better. If you're here for this shakeup, if you're watching the power dynamics shift in real time, then stay with us. Drop a comment, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe for more. Because this isn't just a moment in women's basketball. This is a movement.